Let's get ready to rumble!
Alright, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Caroline Dubois, and brilliantly so, wants a challenge. She's talking about MIKAELA Mayer, and Beatrice Ferreira wants a challenge. Beatrice Ferreira wants to fight everybody now. So, seeing as Caroline couldn't get a big fight, all I said was, why wait for that fight? Let's do it now. And then Caroline said, I'll sell out the O2 with MIKAELA Mayer. I mean, I don't know who's telling these things.
Did you hear that? Like, Ben Shalom is basically telling his fighters a lot of stuff, hyping them up, but he won't be able to deliver on them promises. MIKAELA Mayer does not sell out the O2 Arena, not even with Alicia Baumgardner headlining, let alone Caroline Dubois. It would be lucky if it sells out the Copper Box. What is Ben telling these fighters?
But she said, oh, he'd pay us peanuts to fight Beatrice Ferreira. How do you know? You want me to make you an offer? I'll make an offer. And it'll be a lot of money.
Would it go on that undercard if you did make an offer?
No. Look, Caroline Dubois' team wouldn't let her go fight Beatrice Ferreira now. All I'm saying is I'm not a fan of this. We'll build it up. That's a fight when we've both got world titles. There's no world titles to win at the moment. I think Caroline got stitched up a bit. I felt a bit sorry for her because everyone attacked her. When someone put a quote out saying he's a terrible promoter, and what she actually said was he's done a terrible job promoting Beatrice Ferreira, which she's had 3 fights. She's boxed twice in America. She's boxed once in England.
I saw this post on Twitter and like she basically got torn apart in the comment section, but more of it was aimed at Ben Shalom saying Ben won't allow you to take the fight, and that's carryover from the Fraser Clark, Fabio Woodley purse bid debacle. Savannah Marshall fought Frenchon Cruz at the Manchester Arena for the undisputed super middleweight titles, which Savannah won. Savannah's a bigger name than Caroline Dubois, way bigger name. The Manchester Arena seats 21,000 people, and according to this report here, Northern Echo, a local paper to Savannah, they said more than 8,500 people will be in attendance. So let's assume there wasn't more than 9,000 people in there, and it's a 21,000 seater arena. It's not even half full. So how are you going to sell out the O2 Arena? Why does she believe that? I mean, she's not as big a name as Natasha Jonas, and she was on the Savannah Marshall card. So Savannah, a bigger name than Caroline, and Natasha, a bigger name than Caroline, could only put 9,000 in a 21,000 arena. And look, don't get it twisted, I'm not dissing that number. 9,000 is a fucking good crowd for women's boxing. It's a good crowd. I'm just telling Caroline from now, you are not selling out the O2 Arena. I don't know what Ben's thinking. Like, MIKAELA won an interim belt in her last fight on a BT card, on the undercard of Zhang and Joyce. So there's no guarantee that Sky get that fight or Boxer get that fight. There's no guarantee that MIKAELA comes to the UK. They might say, yeah, okay, let's make the Dubois fight, but you come to the US. Is Caroline a big draw over here yet? I don't think so. She hasn't headlined yet. Even her brother Daniel has more of a name than she has. He's not a draw over here. Even Anthony Joshua is having to downsize in his last 2 fights. No more stadium fights. In his last fight, he was back at the O2. I remember the ticket sales were moving very slow at first. Even though they were premium priced, they were moving very slow. Go back to 2016 when AJ fought Charles Martin, though. Sells out O2 Arena in 90 seconds. Did you hear what I said there? How much world champions we got in the country now? About 3 or 4? Well, this bill here had Anthony Joshua fighting Charles Martin for the IBF title, Lee Selby defending his IBF featherweight title, Jamie McDonald defending his WBA world bantamweight title, 3 world titles on 1 card in the UK. And this is before Joshua was touching the stadium fights. It was on fire. Oh yeah, George Groves was on the bill as well. I'm talking about men's boxing. We had 11 world champions in 2016 in the UK. 11 at one stage. Now it's 3 or 4. So apart from AJ doing Saudi Arabia last year and Tyson Fury doing 2 stadium fights in the UK, in 2023, the scene doesn't have the same buzz. And we don't know what Tyson Fury is doing right now. I mean, AJ's got 2 fights scheduled, Dillian and then Deontay. What's Tyson Fury doing? He hasn't even got 1 conventional boxing match lined up yet. We keep hearing that it's going to be a game-changing announcement. What's going on with Frank Warren Tyson Fury right now. 2015 was a very pivotal year for British boxing. Tyson Fury fought Vladimir Klitschko, and before that, Dillian fought Anthony Joshua. Up until this point, the pay-per-views in the UK were around £16.95. £16.95. And then in 2016, we had the Charles Martin AJ fight. This bumped it up to £19.95. Now, recently, we've seen Tyson Fury and AJ charging $25.99, £26 for pay-per-views. And it's very ambitious, charging $26.99 for Dillian Whyte versus Anthony Joshua in 2023, 7 years after their first fight, when they're both trying to re-establish themselves. There's been a lot of ups and downs. You know, when we revisit the first fight between AJ and Dillian, we are pulling out of a period after David Haye fought Vladimir Klitschko. That did way over 1 million pay-per-view buys. But the fight was so disappointing that Sky had to abandon pay-per-views for a couple of years until Carl Froch fought Mikhail Kessler in 2013. That was quite a significant fight in the boxing landscape, Kessler versus Froch. He only done 30,000 pay-per-view buys. And Froch was one of our biggest stars. You know, people think that, Brits just watch anything and we sell out everything. No. We've had periods of slumps in British boxing. In 2015, Fury done 545,000 against Klitschko on Sky. And that's for 3 titles. Joshua done 500,000 against Charles Martin. Then it was when he fought Vladimir Klitschko, then we started going over the 1 million mark and record-breaking landmarks and stuff. I think this Dillian Whyte event, I think people actually want to see the fight, but I think a lot of people would have preferred it not to be pay-per-view, or at least at $19.95. It seems to have got a tremendous response because the first fight was so good and the build-up was so good. 500,000 is good for a non-title fight at $26.95. That's good. I think the arena sells itself out for a definite. I don't envision Anthony Joshua losing the fight in no way, shape or form. I don't envision that. Dillian can punch, so he's got a puncher's shot, of course. But this is a great precursor before Anthony Joshua takes on Deontay Wilder. What's Wilder doing for his interim fight before he takes on AJ? What's happening on that front? Tyson Fury fans and pro-Fury media, they wasn't happy when he was on the sidelines 2016, 2017 and for part of 2018 and AJ took all the belts. They called AJ a paper champion who wouldn't have had all this shit if Fury was there. But it wasn't AJ's doing that Fury gave away the belts and AJ became a star. And once again, Fury's got the belt, or should I say, plural. AJ has no straps. And Fury's letting him take the initiative again. AJ's got 2 fights lined up. Dillian Whyte, Deontay Wilder. If he wins both of them this year, and then people are clamouring for a Fury fight if the Usyk fight isn't made, can Fury really say it's a 40-60 fight? It's a 50-50 fight. To me, he gives the initiative back to Anthony Joshua. And then he's going to start bitching and crying that AJ was given everything. No, he wasn't. AJ's been consistent, and even AJ detractors are coming around to what a lot of us have been saying. AJ has more mandatory defenses. He's kept the belts longer than Fury, and he's more dependable in terms of turning up and giving the fans what they want. And that's where Fury's losing out, like it or not. Boxing journalists in the mainstream and boxing media in the mainstream are mainly a lazy bunch of reactionaries who don't have the intelligence to objectively look at the components of what makes up the division and why certain scenarios come up. Like, they keep talking about the Middle East ruining boxing. The Middle East, the Saudis are ruining boxing. The Saudis is based on 4 fighters out of the heavyweight division. 4. And 2 fights to be made. What about Hrgovic? Why isn't he in a big fight? Anything to do with the Saudis? Him against Dempsey McKean is a good fight. Good to see him back in action. What about Frank Sanchez? Why isn't he in a big fight? He's a highly ranked contender. Anything to do with the Saudis? How long's Otto Wallin been looking for a fight? Saudis? What about Martin Bakole? Andy Ruiz ain't got a fight. How much heavyweights have I just mentioned there? About 5 or 6. And that's the reason people are actually looking forward to AJ and Dillian because they're being starved of real competitive heavyweight action. Part of that is Tyson Fury and Frank Warren's fault. Malik Scott talking about, oh, they should strip Tyson Fury if he's going to fight Ngannou. Well, you're one to talk. How long was Dillian #1 contender? Did Wilder entertain that? How many mandatories did Wilder fight while he was champion? What about the opportunities he had to top all the belts against AJ and turn them down because the network didn't want him to go? Maybe they should strip Tyson Fury, but Malik Scott, I don't know if he's in a position to be talking about that.
Bollocks saying that all. I mean, listen, I will say it. Listen, I like Joe Gallagher, brilliant coach. But when he says, "Oh, AJ and Whyte, they're holding up the heavyweight division," bro, it's a non-title fight. How can it be holding up the division?
Joe Gallagher and the whole anti-Matchroom thing is just a weird thing to look at. Holding up the division? No, Fury's holding up the division. Joe. But maybe because he's from Manchester like Joe, or around that region, he's being very selective. Joe Gallagher and Natasha Jonas, they left Matchroom acrimoniously. Natasha got a shot against Katie Taylor, didn't quite get there. The draw against Terry Harper, I thought Natasha could have shaded it, but it was a draw. She became world champion over there. But since she's went to Boxer and Sky, maybe because she's an aging fighter, she's trying to get some easy fights and get the bread, and if that's the case, I can't blame her. But you know, Joe is always slagging off Matchroom, slagging off Eddie Hearn, and complaining about the northern fighters don't get the attention that the London fighters get, and the bias. But what have you done since you've been on Sky with Natasha Jonas? People are calling out Natasha saying, well, why ain't she fighting Terry Harper to tie up all them straps? Like she won a world title under Savannah Marshall, French on Cruz. Who was the opponent? Everyone said the opponent was subpar. Everybody. So, okay, you won a world title, but who against? The Terry Harper fight is waiting there. And, Eddie said several times, if Ben Shalom wants to put it on Boxer and Sky, go ahead. You got to make the offer to Terry Harper. They've done nothing. And now a lot of people, including Clarissa Shields, is saying that Jones is ducking that fight too. So, what's improved since you went over to Boxer, Joe? Prognosis not looking good. Not looking good. Third time he's had to pull out of the Stanionis fight with this rhamniolysis blood disorder issue. Now, you move up to 154, you still have to make weight. You still have to train extremely hard. 7 pounds is nothing. Up until 1962, there was no light middleweight division. 7 pounds is nothing. I hear Oscar De La Hoya saying, yeah, we're just going to move him up. And the kid himself probably thinking the same thing. Yeah, all I've got to do is move up, and that will take some of the strain off his body. But will it really? It might ease it up a little. That's not necessarily the solution. Boxing, right now, has to take a back seat. There shouldn't be no talk of moving him up to light middle or anything right now. His health comes first, or should, but then again, it's up to him as well. It's up to him. We all have free will. You know, the likes of Tim Tszyu is on fire right now. He's on fire. So what? You think training for Tim Tszyu is going to be that much easier than training for Errol Spence at 147? No, it won't be. You're going to have to go just as hard as he was at 147. Yeah, you've got 7 pounds to play with. Big fucking deal. How tall is he? 5'9", 5'10"? 25 years of age? Back in 62, you got tighter the weight. You'd have to move up to fucking middle. See, even in the 60s, when Emil Griffiths and was it Denny Moyer, when they were light middleweight champions, there wasn't regular fights at that weight class. The gene pool wasn't there for regular fights. You'd have to move up to 160. These blood disorders are not easy. I mean, Huey Fury had one, didn't he? You saw the acne on his skin. Without the condition even being irritated, you look at Huey's skin, it looked like he was bleeding through that acne. He's never going to fully recover from what he went through. The blood disorders is no joke. If you're a citizen, yeah, you can make a full recovery because you're not trying to fight 10 and 12 fucking rounders. Oscar wants to get him back in there. Yeah, let's move him up to 154. Don't even worry about what the doctors are going to suggest because it's looking peak. Looking peak, fam. As the London youths will say, looking peak. So, what's the deal? Now, we know that Ramirez isn't much cop, right? After that dismal performance against Bivol. Ryan has served them with a lawsuit. Doesn't look like he's going back there. And Vergil is on the verge of collapse if he continues with his boxing career. He needs to sign some new fighters, you know what I mean? Like, he's got Philip Schofield headlining the card. This is joking. I mean Floyd Schofield. He'll be elevated to main event in Ortiz's place. Spare a thought for Stanionis. Is he still on the card? How much time did he have to pull out for Errol Spence? The Ugas fight when Errol fought Ugas, and possibly when Errol was going to fight Pacquiao. And then Errol pulled himself out in a Lambo. Yeah, Stanionis, he gave up a couple of shots, had a couple of injuries himself, had an appendectomy himself, and now a big fight and a decent payday has just disappeared. Boxing, not an easy game. Not an easy game. Post-fight, Prograis versus Cirilla. Oscar said, another shitty card from Eddie Hearn. He wanted him to go back to the UK and watch the fight of the year candidate between Ortiz and Stanionis. Well, that one aged about as well as the avocado I bought on Tuesday.
But I'ma humble myself.
Felix Cash has parted ways with Tony Sims. They say it's amicable. I believe he's still at Matchroom. The Ammo Williams fight should still be on. I don't know what card that was supposed to be on. It could be the AJ Dillon card. I just found out that Felix went through some mental health issues earlier this year. That could be why he delayed taking the Ammo Williams fight. Ammo Williams himself has had some mental health issues. They're also talking about Dempsey McKean versus Agovich on the undercard of AJ Dillon. And Fabio Wardley will be on the undercard as well. Diego Pacheco is in action tonight. I'm trying to finish this up and get it out ASAP. Yep, Diego Pacheco, 6'4", 79-inch reach, super middleweight, 22 years of age, 18 wins, 15 inside the distance. He takes on Manuel Gallegos. I know nothing about him. Gallegos is 19-1-1 with 16 stoppages. Looks pretty tough, 6'3" himself. Yo. This is in Cintemex, Monterrey, Mexico. So I'm looking forward to that. Can't really verify the level of Gallegos' opponents because he's scored most of them wins in Mexico. And sometimes, you know, like you take a fine tooth comb through the resume and there's a lot of losing records on the ledger. But nevertheless, you know, like good fight. You know what's been good about Diego Pacheco? He's one of them kids who keeps his head down. His last fight was at the Echo Arena, Liverpool, which was a good experience for him to travel. The young dude got a lot of potential. He's having his 19th pro fight. But because he's kind of been low-key, fighting in America and Mexico, there hasn't been the pressure for him, oh yeah, you need to do this and you should be at this level so far. So they're managing to nurture him and get him opponents like this with high knockout ratios and looks pretty handy. But he's not being pressured. He's kind of getting to develop at the pace that would probably suit his trainer. But it's a fine balance. You want to keep him relevant. You want to get his popularity up, but you don't want to overexpose him at the same time. It's a hard balance with a prospect, developing a prospect. These are some of the tough challenges that promoters and trainers are met with and matchmakers when developing prospects. And that's been pretty good for Diego. But he does want that Edgar Berlanga fight. He does want it. He says he's levels above Edgar. I think he'll beat Edgar as well. And that can happen. They're both on the zone. I think this kid here would beat Edgar.